Yeah. Okay, so this specific session, I think there are two things that I want to show you. One is, of course, yep. So yeah, the two things that I would like to show you. One is, of course, NFV, how to do NFV, and second is some 5G simulation using Python. So there's a simulation using Python. I took some open source code and modified it. So I'll just show you the demo of that as well and share the updated code so that you can try it on your own. Okay. So yeah, thanks, Subha. Good afternoon. Okay, so let's look at NFV, specifically around how NFV we can do and what is that we can do, right? So I'm going to use an open source software called Faucet. So this actually was developed long back by a company called Nicira, which eventually got acquired by VMware. Okay, let's go for the sharing. Okay, yeah, I have it here. Okay, this is it. Here we go. Okay, so just to help you understand this whole uh, NFV thing, right? So before that, we have to look at something called Faucet. So what is Faucet? Faucet is it's actually a SDN controller. So if you have to look at it, it's fundamentally an SDN controller. So and then what the SDN controller does is it programs each devices. So it's like it sits at the top. So any instructions you want to give, you give it to the SDN controller. That in turn percolates the instructions to the network device. So this is unlike the traditional programming, right? I think some of us who have used Cisco Packet Tracer, NS3 kind of things, we would have used and configured those devices separately. Or maybe you would have put something in a configuration file and did it. So as OpenPOW controller is something similar to that, except that you don't have to go to the every device and program it. You can program it through the controller itself. They have something called northbound interface and southbound interfaces and all that. So this is what SDN controller does. So basic requirement is Faucet. This is what of course we need to build the NFV building blocks. So I will show you so something about NFV tutorial. So let me just share this link as well in the chat window. Yeah, I'll just put that link there so that you can look at it at a later time as well. So this is the Python code. So this is something, everything in Python. So it's quite easy to look at, and you can also contribute to enhancements, as you would like to call. Okay, so what I will demonstrate is something like this, right? So eventually, what you will see is actually VNC. Let me connect to my Amazon AWS instance. Okay, so this is, if you can see this, this is an AWS instance that where I'm running the OpenFlow controller. So this the three I will explain completely, and in fact, if you have a Linux system, you can actually try this. So this is not available on Windows or Mac or any other operating system. You have to have a Linux system. So without Linux, you cannot try this out. But if you like to try it out, I can help you with instructions, or you can just take it from here. So let's share that as well. Yes. So this is quite simple. Just to explain what this is. Let me take a whiteboard and explain this. And go back to a sketchboard again. Okay. Yeah, here it is. See, any network systems, right? I think typically this is how the network would look like. For instance, maybe a square. I'll use a rectangle or a square. Okay, this is maybe a switch one. See, like this. Okay, it's a square, right? It should be typically like a rectangle, actually. Yeah. So you would see something like this. There are multiple devices, and you have hosts, small hosts that are connecting. Let's call this as so let's use a poly triangle for that. So let us say this is host 1 and host 2. And what we do typically is like this. And let's say I want to connect it to a cloud, which is here. This is the internet. Basically, this is the internet through which the connection will go. And then we'll see how this applies to the 5G. So it's okay. So typically what we do is we take a Ethernet port, connect it like this, take another Ethernet port, connect it like this, and this is the host. They could be either wired or wireless. If it's wireless, then we have Wi-Fi router and all that. Okay, so this is typically how this is the external network. I'll say external. This is external network. Okay, external network, and this is the host. This is like one PC. This could be another PC or a laptop or a mobile phone. It doesn't matter. So let's say mobile phone. I'll write it as MP mobile phone. Okay. So some of you who are familiar, right? So this is how it would look like. So this would be something like a E0/0 or FA0/0. Of course, now it's all become gigabit. This is E1/0. Then we connect it together. This is again, so this is how this would be in VLAN. This is VLAN 10. We would have put it in VLAN 10. And then we will write this in VLAN, say 100. And this is VLAN 200. So mostly packet tracer, people who have used packet tracer will be familiar with this kind of configuration. So this is what happens. Now when a PC is sending, let us say, I'll use a different color, black, okay. So when PC is sending data, so the data receives by, this is switch 1, this is switch 1, and this is switch 2, this is switch 2, this is some switch 3. Okay, so when data comes, this black is data here, okay. So when data comes, the switch 1 will, the data comes on this link. So the switch will do some MAC address processing and then put the first time it will flood it on in all interfaces. Next time it does a MAC address learning and only put it on this particular. But the idea is that, okay, the packet will come, the forwarding rule is created on the switch, and then it goes out to the next switch, and then the packet goes out. So this is how typically any network typical packet flow will be there. So this is where the data flows is called data plane. So that means what we just saw is where the path taken by the data to reach its from its source to the destination is called data plane. So the question is, what is data plane? A data plane is nothing but the path taken by the data from its source to destination is called data plane. So now anything else that happens in the middle is all related to data plane. Now let us say And so let us say, because how did the switch know that it has to send the packet out of this interface? So let us say this interface is E0/0, and this interface from where the packet came, let us call it as E1/0. Okay, and there is also one more interface here, and this is also, let's say, E1/0, the other switch. Now, so there's someone inside the switch, okay, who made the decision that the packet coming here will have to go here. So from coming on this interface, we'll have to go on the interface. That is because of the local forwarding that happened. Okay. Now, in this case, I want to drop a firewall. I want to do firewalling of all the packets that are going from like this. Okay. This is the other uh, data plane of the other host, which is MP host. So in this case, if you're following my diagram, so you know that one, either the data can go like this, or now let us say if I create more interfaces between these switches, right? So now there are multiple paths to S3. So that means the switch can either send it through this interface like this, or send it through, let me switch color, or send it through this interface, and then this is how it can go, or also send it to this interface, and again this can go like this. So there are multiple paths to S3 now, from S1, S2, and S2. So so that means all decisions on how the packet has to go from, once the packet is inside a box, if I can call this a switch. So some logic or program in the switch is saying which path for the packet that packet has to take to go to the next device, or the next hop, as we call in networking. So now the whole thing is, who is telling the switch in terms of where the packet comes and how the packet goes out, right? So there is some logic inside the switch telling that, and typically that logic is the switch OS. So let's call it as SWOS. There are different names given by different companies. So if it is Cisco, it is called IOS. If it is Juniper, it is called JunoOS. JunoOS. If it is Arista, it is called EOS. And of course, so Nokia has Nokia OS, and every vendor has their own operating system that they will say, okay, we have this thing, and that is the logic that actually drives the entire hardware. So there is some software which decides when to do, and then some of these things may happen in hardware also, because of the speed and all that will ensure that the packet keeps going from one part to another part. Okay, so now the best. So now. Okay, so I was trying to explain this SDN concept. So this is what typically happens. Now imagine instead of running that decision code inside the switch, we kind of yank it out, take it out, and put it in another switch, another device. Let's call this as controller. I'll write the text here, controller, which will make all the decisions. This is like a decision point system. So instead of having to make those decisions on the switch, so what can happen is those decisions can actually happen on the. Let's say I erase this out a little bit. Okay, this is the switch. Cancel. So this is a switch. So what happens is, now when a packet comes in, so let us say there is no OS on the switch, just a hardware which is just trying to push packets from one side to another side. So at that time, this switch will not know where to send the packet. So what it will do is it will ask the controller, okay, I have a packet coming from say A and then going to say Z. So now to whom should I hand? So all that the switch is trying to do is when it gets a packet on one side, it is trying to make a decision on what to do with the packet and how to put it forward, right? So in that case, it will just say that, okay, so now, so the controller will say, okay, you send the packet through E0 interface. So, so let us say the response is that it will send it through E0. So the E0 interface, E0 says interface, so the switch will start forwarding. So that means all the decision point, right, is going to be here. Decision, if I get the right spelling, it is the decision point is actually, it's going to be on the controller. So all decisions will happen here. Just the forwarding of the packet from one interface, choosing the right interface to send the packet out is happening on the data plane. So this is called data plane control plane separation. Okay, data planes control separation. So similarly, in a 5G also, you are seeing a data plane where there is a user equipment connected to a RAN. Then we have a RAN which connects to the user equipment. And then we have a user plane, user UPF, I think, user plane function, which in turn sends the packet towards the internet, right? This is the internet. So very similar picture you can see in a 5G, all the discussion that we have been having, right? So let me check if I have it here. Yeah. So as you can see, it's the same picture that user equipment ran UPF and then the data plane. Something similar to what we are seeing. PC, a set of switches, then to the internet. So something similar. So instead of a wired device, we have a wireless cellular device. Instead of a switch, we have a RAN, and instead of another switch, we have something called UPF, and we have the same internet here, right? So this is very similar to both things. Nothing different. So that way, networking hasn't changed much, but the only thing, the way you do networking has changed. So now let us say this is the system, right? And we want to drop a firewall. So in a real sense, if we had to really drop, we should have dropped the firewall somewhere here. So if I uh, take this red color. So if we have to do, okay, I'll take the rectangle. Okay. I'll take a star instead. Yeah. So if the star is a firewall, let's say this is a firewall. Okay. So in that case, we will have to drop the star somewhere here. So let's fill the star with some, yeah. So now it's very clear, right? So we have to drop the star here because all traffics, oops, so many stars are coming out. Okay. So now all packets will come into the star, get firewalled. In our case, star is nothing but a firewall. So this is a firewall. Okay. So all packets will come to the star and then go out. That means you have to physically drop the firewall between every device or wherever you want to do the firewall. So this is not going to work well if this device is somewhere remotely located. So in a 5G, let us say, if I want to drop a firewall, I can't go to every tower and add a firewall. So that is not going to happen. So because if you want a firewall right at the RAN side, so it is not going to scale where we can go to every tower and drop a firewall. So in that case, what we will do is, I'll just demonstrate it on the top here. So we will drop a firewall somewhere here on the outside, and then we will tell that, okay, so this is how, so now I'll just erase this part and draw this back again. Okay, so I'll draw this line again like this. It was there earlier also. So now I will drop a firewall somewhere outside and then tell the controller to send all the packets from switch 1 and switch 2 to this star device. So all packets, if I'll use a different color again, So this will be all the packets that come from the user will now go to the firewall because the controller has told S1 to send all the packets to firewall. Firewall will inspect and send it back, and then S2 can forward it. This is one way. So similarly, all packets from S2 will also go to firewall. Firewall process it, returns it, and then S2 forwards it. So S2 becomes just a forwarding device based on the decision of the firewall. So if the firewall decides to drop a packet, it will not send the packet at all. So in that case, those packets will just get dropped at the firewall. So it will do a drop here. So it will just drop it here. So that way your firewalling ensures that all packets coming from S1 and S2 are inspected and dropped. So this is what we'll actually see, how to do a drop of this inspection IDS system. Instead of firewall, I'm using an IDS. I can use this is also similar to firewall, just that it does signature inspection instead of packet inspection, instead of a stateful protocol inspection. So in this case, so look at the ease at which we can deploy a firewall without having to change anything. Otherwise, we had to go to physically every layer of S1, S2, and then drop a firewall and come back. So similarly in a RAN, so if you want to do a firewall, so all that you have to do is so find a way to drop a firewall. So again, let's say this star is a firewall, and then program the RAN to send the packets to firewall. And if the firewall looks good, it will return it. Otherwise, the firewall drops the packet. If the firewall doesn't like the packet, it will not even return it to the RAN. That way, the path is broken and the whole user path gets terminated. Okay. So now the question is, we talk about RAN doing everything, right? So what is that inside the RAN? It is actually the BBU. The RAN is nothing but the BBU, in this case, the one that actually connects to the rest of the internet or of the 5G ecosystem is actually the BBU. So on one side, the BBU has a connection to the user data plane for forwarding the packet to the internet. On the other side, it has another control plane link. So that any access control, admission control can be done by any new function, network function that we add in it, right? So this is basically is just a concept. And in this case, in our demo that we are going to do here, so we have faucet, okay, FACUET, faucet. So it has 3 or 4 parts. One is called Prometheus. So it is Prometheus. Okay, I'll just show you instead of writing it. So Prometheus monitoring. Okay, so Prometheus monitoring is again an open source monitoring system. So it basically networks. So whatever all the instructions, all the health of the switch, whatever is happening on the switch, forwarding decisions, whether to send it to firewall, whether to send it to next hop. So all those kind of decisions, basically the metrics you can see using Prometheus. So there's another thing called Grafana. Grafana is observability platform. This is actually very good. Next time when you do any networking projects, ensure you have Grafana integrated to your solution, so that you get the dashboard of it, you get the visibility of it. So this is quite useful in cloud computing, like cluster monitoring, Docker monitoring, network device monitoring, and all that. So it's it says whatever you want to see, you can put it there. Okay, so I will just show how it looks, and then we'll see how it works. So this is Grafana. This is Prometheus. As you can see, it's just event. It just keeps telling what all is happening. So everything is in our case implemented as a Python program. So you'll see a lot of Python calls being registered. So all API calls, all the event logs, everything will come to Grafana. Faucet is where we show the monitoring. It's like a monitoring dashboard. So that keeps telling us how many packets are coming, how many packets are going in the last 1 hour. We can filter it here. So if you want to see the statistics in the last say 24 hours, let's say say 24 hours, because there's very less traffic. So I started this only yesterday night or evening. So that is why you will see data coming only this much. Nothing is there before that. So you can also say in the last 5 minutes, what is the data? So this amount of data coming in the last 5 minutes. So these are some of the things that you can easily visualize with Grafana. So this is pretty good. Now coming to the controller itself, right? So what is the controller? How is the controller running? And how are we able to insert uh, insert a say firewall in it, right? And we want to learn that. Okay, so before we can understand uh, dynamic insertion of network functions, right, which is basically the virtual function. So all we are trying to say is that we are going to install virtual. So in this case, there is a software called Zeek. Zeek, it used to be called Bro earlier, BRO, but now it's called Zeek. So Zeek is an open source IDS system. So it's like it's a firewall, it is a intrusion detection system, application monitoring system. So it kind of does a lot of things. So Zeek is pretty good in terms of infrastructure monitoring. So what we are doing here is, when we have to create uh, what we do is, when we want to create uh, the virtualization. So there are a couple of things that we do. Okay, first you have to have the faucet running. So for that, of course, you will have to follow these instructions. So this is, of course, a Debian or a rather Linux only systems package. So you'll not be able to use it on other platforms. So better have Linux before you can try to use this. So second is, you create a configuration file. So there's some shortcuts. Okay, so which basically means it will help you add a node or delete a node or something like that. So in a way, what we are trying to do is, in this case, I will just show you the configuration file that we have. Okay. Okay, so this is a faucet configuration file. If you can see here, so you can actually set some ACLs also. So ACL is access control list. So that is basically used to prevent block, permit, blacklist, whitelist IP addresses on the network device. So ACL, access control list, basic stateless access control. See, now if you look at it, so in this setup, we have three VLANs: VLAN 100, VLAN 200, and VLAN 300. So I'm not sure if everybody understands what VLAN is. If you're not familiar with VLAN, so what VLAN basically means, it's a segmentation. It's just one slice of a network. So let me show you how that works. Suppose, so let's erase this. Okay. So suppose I have a network device, right? I have a network device. So there are two departments connected. Let's say there's one user connected through a laptop. Here, there's a laptop and this connected. And there is another PC or maybe one more mobile phone connected. Now you want to ensure that this data coming on this link and data on this link are separate. They do not. So that means the packet doesn't somehow come into this network and then somehow it'll land up on this laptop, right? So they have to be separate. So when they have to be separate, so what happens is, you can separate them logically by grouping them into virtual LAN called VLAN. VLAN is nothing but virtual LAN. So this is like, I can say this VLAN 100 and the other is VLAN 200 kind of thing. So once you do this, this is what happens if you come back to the configuration file. So we have said there's VLAN 100, there's VLAN 200, and there's VLAN 300 also. So this is something like 200, and there's a 300, and I have another VLAN on which I will connect the Zeek IDS system. This is the Zeek IDS system, right? IDS or firewall, you can call IDS. Okay, so this is something that we can do. So now this is all configuration files. So now we are creating two switches, switch one with some VLANs in it. Then and then we are saying, okay. So when we are given all the configurations. So this is where we have created the topology. At the moment, what is happening is we just created the topology. Now we want somehow these packets to come to Zeek before going out. So let's say they come to Zeek to get inspected, to get firewalled, and only those packets that pass firewall check will come out and then get forwarded to its destination. Otherwise, the firewall or the IDS would drop it. So in that case, so I'll just show you some quick configurations on how to do that. So okay, so now that we have, if you come back to this, right? So you can see that there is two hosts, and then we have host one, host two, and host three. Host one is in VLAN 200, host two is in VLAN 200, host three is in VLAN 300, host four is in VLAN 400. So we kind of created multiple hosts and VLANs. So what we can do is we can come back to the faucet Grafana, and they are here. We can go here and see the inventory. Okay, so here the inventory shows that there is a software switch one, and okay, this is the version of the software, and it has 6 ports. So you can see that it has 6 ports in it, and it has controller, okay, data path count. So it has 6 port counts. So because we have, if you go back to the configuration file, you can see 6 here. So totally 6 configuration items. So this is an inventory. It gives you what all is connected to your network. So this is a pretty good, easy way to figure out what is connected to the network. And then we come to instrumentation, and this is where you'll see this card. Okay, so this is instrumentation means, okay, so now each of this switch can be running on a VM or a virtual machine. So this gives some statistics, the load on those virtual machines. So this is more of a monitoring statistics, CPU usage, all that will come. And then finally the port statistics. What is the how much traffic is actually going between the systems. So this is it. So now now if I want to drop a firewall, so all that I have to do is, okay, so as see, we create two hosts, host one and host two, with certain IP addresses 0.1 and 0.2. Now we create an open switch to actually bridge them, to connect these two hosts together. Now after that, let us say we start pinging. No. Okay, here it is. So if we want to look at it, right? So this is the way. I will just show you the packets that keep coming. Okay, so it's now listening to the port, and you can see that the moment we drop the firewall, it is getting Zeek. So Zeek is the firewall here, and what it is doing is it's doing a TCP dump. That means it is dumping all the packets that are coming on the firewall. So you can see some of those packets coming in. Let me also uh, do a real ping so that you'll get see another. Yeah. So you can see some packets are coming from different IP addresses. So the concept of VNC of NFV is that you can virtually drop any network function, and by using something like a controller, you will be able to program those devices to send the traffic from one device to this device without changing the interconnection between the devices. So in other words, without changing the I think where we looking at, I think yeah, something like this, right? So without changing here, yeah. So without changing any of the physical connections, you are able to insert something in the middle and make it work and align with the network. So this is called like a bump in the wire, right? Actually the cable was going like this. Suddenly the traffic now has one more hop that it has to go through, which is firewall come back and then get forwarded. So this is like a bump in the wire. So Faucet, of course, it requires at least a day for you to carefully download various instructions and then do it. I could do it in like 2-3 hours time yesterday, but yeah, it requires some practice. But once you understand a little bit of Grafana and how to bring up it, it's quite easy actually, pretty easy to look at it. So I definitely encourage you to just install it on your Linux system, see how you can. Okay, there is also a Docker version which may be good. You can just create the Docker and you should be able to use it. If you have Docker, then you can run it on even a Windows system. So I should try this. I haven't tried Docker version of Faucet. So if this is Docker, then you don't need a uh, Linux, because I didn't notice that they have a Docker version. So it looks like we have one. So we can just use it. And then, yeah, there is Docker pull, Faucet all, there is still the Docker compose and put it in the cloud. Okay. So this is it. This is just one demo. Of course, if we have to do it, you can you'll have to try with Faucet first, install Faucet, and then insert Zeek as a firewall. So this is just to help you understand the concept of network virtualization. So what will happen in case of 5G is that similarly we can, if this is a Zeek, right, which is doing firewall, and you want to insert it on a RAN. So all that you have to do is program the RAN to send all the data to Zeek, and then you run it Zeek as a Docker or in some machine, and then you should be able to get the firewalling function done. So this is one such thing. Now, any questions on NFV? Just on the NFV thing. Okay. Now somebody there's a question from Shubhaprata. Can you explain again when firewall will drop the packet? Okay. See, uh, what is a firewall? What is the purpose of a firewall? Purpose of firewall is to know the good traffic versus the bad traffic. Okay. The idea of firewall is that it should filter bad traffic and forward good traffic. Now, how what classifies a good traffic and a bad traffic? Let us say if I am watching a YouTube, is it good traffic or bad traffic? Versus somebody trying to run Python code, is that a good traffic or a bad traffic? I think here the definition of good and bad is one in terms of the behavior of it. Now, let's there is a virus or an anti-malware. So obviously that is going to create is going to spread in the system and create a lot of issues for the network and the users of the network. So the firewall will be, when I say firewall of course is a very sophisticated device. So like there are companies like Palo Alto which only make money by selling firewalls. Majority of the time, they are exclusive of a firewall company. Though there are companies like Cisco, Juniper, everybody doing firewall, but there are some companies which specially specialize on firewall, just firewall. So this is a kind of a sophisticated piece of code which tells you, which kind of differentiate a good traffic versus bad traffic. But now, how is that differentiation happening? Earlier, it used to be based on signature. So I used to put a signature. So there is something called signature. So every malware used to have a signature. So we could, by identifying or processing the packet, we could know that this is a good packet, this is a malware packet versus a non-malware packet. So that was the olden days. Now, of course, everything has become too smart. There is something called AI, ML, all that, everything has AI, ML nowadays. So there is a equally good AI, ML firewalls that are coming, which can which can actually create do threat detection. So that way, it's a much sophisticated system nowadays, AI ML. So there's a lot more deep learning, machine learning, supervised learning kind of algorithms which go into firewall making that makes it a little more sophisticated. Now it's up to the firewall, the configuration of the firewall to say what it will do. When I said drop the packet, it means it will stop sending the packet forward. So what happens when typically when a network device, a packet comes in, okay, and let us say it goes to the firewall for processing. The firewall looks at the packet based on its AI ML rules and whatever is being it has been taught to do. It will make a check and see if that HTTP packet or a TCP packet is it good or bad. So if it is good, then it will return the packet to the switch for it to be forwarded. If it is not, then the firewall will just discard the packet in the queue. So that way the packet is lost forever. So there's no harm by forwarding it to the next hop. So that is what actually when I mean by drop of the packet. So dropping or denying the further propagation of the flow of the packet in the network. You can also call it as what is a drop. Drop is nothing but denying the packet from proceeding further in the network part. So that is how we can say drop means. So okay, so Nidhi has a question. NFV to TV broadcasting and Netflix are subscriber and NFV to okay. See, for Netflix kind of systems, right? So look at okay, that's a very good question, Nidhi. Okay, that gives me an opportunity to explain something, one more concept. Okay, so I took a new page. So I'll just for the heck of it, I'll just draw the old picture also here. So we had two hosts connected to two different switches like this. This way, and then we had one more switch. They all connected to this internet gateway, and from the gateway they went into the internet, right? This is where the internet somewhere. This is Sony Live, this is Prime. So all these TV providers are all here. Okay? So this is good. Now, when we talk about firewall, we are talking about the protection of the user, okay, and the protection of the servers. So these are the servers which are running, and these are the users that are there in the system. So when we talk about firewall, we are trying to protect any bad content, bad traffic coming uh, from the user and going into the server, or something in the reverse also. Okay. Now, when it comes to broadcasters, so what happens? So let's zoom into this. Now I'm just going so I'm just zooming into this area only, because this area is where the TV broadcasters are there. Okay, so one of them will be Prime. I'll call this as P. One of them may be Netflix. We'll call it as an N. Another Star Sports is call it as S. So this is where. So if you look at into their systems, right, what is happening there? So let's take Netflix for instance, right? Let's take Netflix. So Netflix, how would a Netflix architecture look like? So one, it has a database. It has like maybe millions of movies lying in the disk, somewhere in the hard disk. Okay? I'm just trying to guess how Netflix has designed that. I mean, of course, it's open source. You can actually Netflix software architecture. So they have, in fact, you can see how Netflix is doing it. Okay, so this is how Netflix architecture is going to be. So if you zoom into Netflix, right? So they have a lot of servers. As you can see, there are a lot of servers and they have microservices, they have databases, some kind of Kafka. As we discussed in the morning, Kafka is the message queues that they employ to send messages from one thing to another thing. So there is microservices, there is billing to manage your subscription. So there's quite a few things that is there in Netflix. So let's understand how NFV helps in a Netflix kind of use case. Now, this is all movie databases, right? It's all movie files. The media, I will say that movie media is there. All files of movies, all different, all languages, Hindi, English, and all that is here. Now, there are different servers that sit in the front. So maybe let's say this is a server that is catering to maybe TV shows. It's trying to fetch all the TV shows. When you select a TV show, let's say all that request will come to this server. So there is one other server for movies. So when you choose a movie, all that requests will come to here. And between them, and these are the users. The users are sitting here. So these are users with Netflix app trying to enjoy a movie. Okay, and they're saying that, okay, let me find out what is the latest movies. So there is a cataloging server also. There's one more server which does catalogs, which basically categorizes your movies into, say, thriller, genre, they call, right? Maybe suspense, thriller, horror, comedy, romantic, and all that kind of categorization. There is another service to do that. So when let us say when you are the user, you are categorizing, you're looking at the catalog. So you have an app, and in the app you say, okay, there are some movies and there's some TV shows. Now show me all the movies, latest movies, you'll say. So all the requests will go to the categorizing server. It will come here. That will say, okay, what are you looking for? Movies. Then it will send a message through Kafka bus, all that message broken architect, saying that give me a list of all latest movies that you have. So that request will come, the response will now it will come back, and then it will be returned to the user. So now you'll go one step ahead and see all the movies that are come here. So all that information will be, of course, in a database. It's mostly Cassandra or Mongo. Mostly, I think, from the architecture that we saw, it looks like they use Cassandra, but it can be any BangDB or Cassandra DB, or there's something called BangDB, which has come very new. BangDB, which is a EIML aware databases. So it's a very cool idea. It is one of the Indian startups that have invented this. So they're combining the SQL, NoSQL kind of queries with AI and ML query-based queries, and then GraphDB and all that into one. It's called BangDB. So anyway, so this database will have all the movies. So what it will pull is, it will pull the list of the movies and then give it to you. And then you will choose one movie. Let's say you want to play maybe the latest movie, Avengers or something like that. So once you make a choice, so it will now offload to a streaming server. So there will be one more server called streaming server. So what the streaming server does is, it will start fetching the movie from the database wherever you are and start streaming it to you. And you will keep track of what is the last fragment of movie that has been sent to you. So that's where when we stop a movie and replay again, it's able to remember when you last stopped, and it is able to continue from there, right? All that experience that we get is because it's a stateful streaming. So they keep track of what was the last frame or that was delivered from the movie database, and then they from the fragments of the movie, and then they at the time slicing. Basically, it's a time slicing database. So there is actually another database called time space or time DB. Time space. I think, yeah, it's called time space. Time space DB. Time scale. It's called time scale. So this is another database, right? So this is what will help you kind of add a lot of time series related information and historical management. So let us say you want to know what exactly happened in the last 1 minute, what happened in the last 2 minutes, what happened in the last 10 minutes, all the events that happened in the last 15 minutes. So if you, when you have such kind of queries that come where you want to see some information in that slices of past time, so then this kind of timescale DB is what will be very useful because it's a time series DB. Again, it's again built think on graph theory. So it's a very interesting. You should try it out if you are like this. So wherever you want to maintain historical information and you want to keep going. So for instance, I'll give you an example right away. Look at this, right? So today, let's go back to faucet statistics. And here, statistics. And here we want to see last 1 hour. What was the traffic pattern in the last 1 hour? What is the traffic pattern in the last 5 minutes? So that means the whole data is sliced into different times. And when you make a query, it is able to either integrate or differentiate. So basically, it's like an integration and differentiate. Either it is summation or it's a linear scale anyway. In this case, of course, but there are a lot more complicated non-linear logarithmic kind of data propagation, data profiling as well. So, but in this case, as you can see here, it's you can go back last 5 minutes, you can go to last 10 minutes, you can go to last 2 days, or anything like that. So all this is where the data is sliced into different times, is where this kind of database is going to be useful. So it's very cool idea that somebody developed this. So there's a lot of new tools that keep coming every day. I mean, there's a lot of, but some of them are very popular, and they're the heart of a lot of big organizations that use these kind of tools. That's how they're able to build scalable, manageable systems with low cost and less resources and less time. So nobody's coding in C, FI for your information. It's just under, and unless you're embedded system, the very few companies that actually use application companies that use C language. But because C, you cannot do a lot of things like that. If you use a timescale DB, you can have a Java plugin, you can have a Python plugin, you can have a REST API interface with JSON or XML. So all that mix and match of protocol data is all that you can do with this. Okay, so I think I'm just trying to answer Nidhi's question still. So what does NFV mean for this kind of a company, right? Streaming company. Now let us say if they want to introduce a new queuing system. So maybe they want to introduce a new message queuing system. And they say that, okay, all servers are coming like this, and then each server is talking to each other. And I want to, let us say, because every system is talking to each other, I want some kind of inspection or rate limiting that wants to happen between applications. Because let us say if some user attacks the Netflix site, let's say the catalog server, because the catalog server is also sending signals or message requests to other services within it, it can so happen that one attack on one server can get percolated into others. So it may impact all other services, like a domino effect, where you attack one system because that system is interconnected with other systems. So they all get equally impacted, right? That kind of thing can happen. Now, let us say if you want to prevent that, you want to put a firewall. You want to put a firewall. So what is a firewall? So I'll show you one more thing called Kong. Okay, so Kong is what is basically the firewall for APIs. So this is something that almost every company in the world today, any software company which is providing cloud services will have this in their network called Kong. So Kong is, what is a Kong? Kong provides a lot of functions. So it does API management, it does API governance, threat detection, security. So everything, so you can say what a firewall did for a network device, the Kong does for all the API services. So now what happens if I want to introduce a Kong, which is basically, again, I'll use the star as a Kong. So I want to introduce it somewhere here between, so that all requests that are going into these servers, they now go through Kong. So it's very simple. So you bring up Kong as an NFV in some compute as a Docker or something like that. And then you program all the servers to redirect the traffic first to Kong before they get, instead of they directly talking to each other, we'll say, okay, why don't you put everything to Kong and Kong will manage. So that's how it is. Now, this is a classic example of how, without changing the server configuration, without disturbing the interprocess intranet of the server configuration, you can just on the fly drop a new network as a service or as a virtual service, and then reprogram the entire servers to be able to have all the traffic coming in like this and then going out into different services. So this is just an illustration of what how somebody like a TV broadcasting system or anyone, it could be anyone, this could be even other servers, Flipkart, I mean, Walmart, it doesn't matter who it is, they all will be able to use it as a drop. So hope that answers your question, but this is just the flexibility of how you get and what you can get. Okay, so that's how you can see corporations like Netflix, Amazon, they all can take anything dynamically, right? That is so the new skill that the industry needs is all about people knowing these kind of tools. So if you that's where there is a term that everybody uses, full stack development, DevOps, right? DevOps. So you might have heard of DevOps. People talk about DevOps, CI/CD pipelining, and then full stack development, databases. So all this is where I think if you look at most of the kids that are starting out today, they're pretty much capture this. They're actually learning this as early as possible, so that when you look out, the kind of skills that will be required to create the next generation in network infrastructure will be these kind of programmable tools, agile services, virtualization, auto virtualization, auto monitoring. So those kind of self healing networks. So these are the kind of innovations that are happening. So some of us who graduated in the 90s, at that time the skill was, okay, you know, a little bit of C programming and Java programming, that was enough. Nobody had to know so much of tools that today it is required to develop a system. So because at that time there wasn't much in the way, everything was a very hard way of doing things. But now everything, imagine if you have to build a timescale DB. So I don't think we could have even imagined what kind of algorithm or a data structures to use. So today by just clicking and installing a Docker, I'm able to get the entire power of a timescale DB. So I don't even know how a timescale DB is implemented. Timescale DB implementation, if I see, it will tell us what kind of data structure. It is basically, I think it should be a graph-based DB, graph DB, I think, but timescale DB data structure. Yeah, it's a relational jump, smaller time. It may be, I don't know, I'm not able to find it quickly. So it could be under the covers, it could be hypertables. Yeah, that's what it says. It uses like a hash table, there's something called hypertables. So mostly hypertables, yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, I don't know how to implement a timescale database, but these are the things that are happening today. You don't have to, okay, you don't want to miss. So I don't, basically you don't have to create everything on yourself. You can just get it that somebody has done, because everybody would have solved some kind of a problem. So all that you have to do is take that and focus more on your problem that you are trying to solve. Let's say you are trying to develop an application to deliver medicines as quickly as possible. Then the whole focus should be on your business of trying to create that delivery ecosystem. So you can just directly um, uh, take these kind of known databases, applications, and then keep creating your entire backend end-to-end architecture. So software development has become very easy in the sense the skills definitely are there, of course, but I think the majority of the application developers today will have to know a few tools, and once they start practicing it, they will be able to pretty much scale. So multi-threading, concepts of multi-programming, multi-threading, garbage collection. If you use Go, there's something called Go routines, which dynamically does a lot of thread management and deadlock prevention and all that without we having to do anything as developers. So earlier, if we had to write a program in C, so then we had to think about semaphores, mutexes, and all that. I'm sure if you talk to a lot of kids who are actually into like 1 or 2 years of experience, I think most of them may not even have used the term semaphore, may not even know the term mutex, because everything is so abstracted and given hidden to them that they don't have to spend time or have to look at those kind of details to develop anything. So that's the point. So how to integrate technology to utilize the full power? There are a lot of things. As I said, you have to know Dockerization. So all that we will talk about it in the software on Friday. So we'll spend a lot of time showing how to use Dockerization. See how to use, see, as I said, right, SDN. So you create a controller, you create an open switch, 5G aware open switch, and you, which is already happening. So that is what I'm saying, that in fact on Friday there is a presentation from Nokia, which is going to show you how the SDN of 5G in network slicing of 5G is already happening. So Nokia SDN. So you SDN 5G slicing. Okay, so this is it. So automated network slicing. So this is one way that they have done it by running their own orchestrator, which is basically their own way of, this is, we can call that orchestrator as a SDN controller. See, what is SDN? So SDN is that if you look at it from a logical point of view, it is just that we are separating the decision plane and the forwarding plane, right? So that is what we discussed just a few minutes back. We are splitting our decision plane and the data plane, forwarding plane. So if you think if this is Nokia's controller, which is slicing the network, that means slicing the network at the interface level, at the CPU level, at the memory level, and then distributing different slices for different use cases. So then you are kind of achieving the whole SDification or converting it that in SDN architecture. Now, if you talk about NFV, how to bring NFV, for instance, if as I said, right, today, if you have a 5G infrastructure and you want to introduce a new firewall or let's say a 5G firewall, right? Tomorrow somebody comes up with a new way to do a 5G firewall. So in that case, you can just use the existing network controller. So though, in fact, it's called MANO, MANO, management and orchestration, MANO, and network orchestration. So this is what is going to be the core part of 5G. When 5G orchestration happens, so this is what actually you will see evolving as SDN controller for 5G. And look at Oracle, man. That's what I really sometimes wonder. Like, so people only know Oracle as a database company, and how many knew that Oracle has a 5G services where they will actually drive 5G core services. You look at it. So this is the entire 5G core services that they have done it, that they are selling it to Dish Wireless. So many things are possible, and all. And if you look at, I think that's one of the reason why you have to keep looking at some of this vendor literature, right? Either we are a student or we are a faculty or a researcher or an industry contributor. So the whole thing is we have to keep looking at what everybody is doing in the community, and you will get so many things that you can learn that from them. So that is where, see, policy convergence. So everything is already happening as we speak. So you see, so Oracle fancies itself as the brain of 5G infrastructure. So did ever anybody think about Oracle not being from a 5G infrastructure company, from the regular database companies that we all know about Oracle? So that is where I think a lot of cool things are happening. And I think to answer your question, there is no one approach that I can say that, okay, this is the way SDN has to be done, and this is the way NFV has to be done for 5G. So it depends on how you want to do it, and you could do it in any way. So you could create a faucet kind of implementation, and whenever a new, so again, let's go back to our building blocks of 5G, right? So let us say I start with basic data plane, and then sometime later I want to design a NEF. So what is NEF? NEF is a network exposure function. Let us say you have a 5G and something new comes up, like the 6G comes up. Okay, and you want to integrate the 5G modules to 6G. So where do you find the integration point? You will integrate through NEF because this is the exposure function. So when you want to integrate, let us say at the moment you do not have anything to integrate, so you will not have this NEF function. Okay, so you will not have NEF function. It will just remain like this. Now let us say when you bring a third-party system for integration, so you can spin off this. Let me erase it so that we get it back. So you can. Oh, interesting. It is erasing the entire. See, interesting. I didn't know that it can erase anything written on it. Okay, so let us say today you do not. Let's say you are a geo, right? As a network operator, and you do not have a use case to integrate the 5G infra to another 5G infra, or maybe to another 6G infra, or maybe some space telecommunication interlinkment. There are a lot of people who are talking about space interlink. Elon Musk keeps talking about Starlink that will provide internet to planets and all that. So we never know. So tomorrow, let's say somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I have a new infrastructure. Can you integrate your infrastructure to my infrastructure?" So till then, you did not think about that problem at all, right? Creating an interface. So now you'll say, "Okay, I want to create an interface. So let me spin off a new Docker and call it as my 5G exposure function." So 5G NEF, that is what is called NEF in 5G world. So I will create this and drop it somewhere here, and then make all the data plane coming here, connect to it, and then because this is connected to this, so suddenly you have created the data path from your 5G infra to a 6G infra. So this is an NFV. This is how what we call NFV. And how do you do it? Either you can do it through your own architecture. You may, as a company, provide that solution to me, or you might want to write your own open source code to do that. So how you do it, it doesn't matter. But the question is your architecture ready for that kind of changes that can come in the future? And that is why, as 5G designers, they have already thought through all this and split everything into separate modules so that each can be plugged and played and can be run anywhere. See that is where I think what you have to really understand, if you have to take away one thing from this whole 5G workshop, is that this is an architecture. Okay, these are building blocks. So imagine building a home. So when you build a home, you will not buy everything of the same brand. So you'll get the best cement from one company. You'll get the best tiles from the best tile manufacturer. You'll get maybe the tap from maybe something like the best tap manufacturer, right? So you'll choose the best of every function of your home. So and then build it. Now that is what is this architecture is. If somebody is very good at firewall, so then you'll only buy that firewall from that person and then drop it as a network partial function and connect everything else that is there into that firewall. So let us say somebody is very good at network authentication like authorization. So then you'll buy, maybe there's a company called Jump Cloud. So you may want to use Jump Cloud's authentication service. So you just drop it as a network in a Docker and run it in your some AWS cloud, and then connect the RAN BBB, right? The baseband unit. You kind of come and point it to this as authentication server, and all authentication requests will start going into this cloud. So I think what is very important, Nidhi, to understand, and since I think you asked a good question, so the thing you have to understand is that in the picture we have written it as building blocks, right? Each one is a building blocks, but you can think a little bigger than that. Think each one being in a different cloud. So this AMF, this is something like AMF, okay? AMF. This is in one cloud. It could be running in GCP cloud. So I'm sorry, I'm not able to write it very well, but this is GCP cloud. But let us say this is an firewall, 5G firewall. And let us say some company like Palo Alto may be very good at firewall. So you'll buy their firewall and run it in say AWS cloud. Okay, and similarly you'll buy some other vendor, and then you'll that's how you'll bring all this together. Now you have created, they're all at different places, and now your data plane is coming and you want to create it. So this is a BBU which is on the RAN. So BBU plays a very important part in all this. So the BBU, which is the RAN part, will now have connections to this so that whenever a packet comes, it will send the packet to that best in class firewall service, and that will get inspected. And once that comes, it will forward it into the data plane. So that connection, the connection to this kind of things can either happen at the BBU or the user plane function. So it's up to the designer of the 5G architect, right, to decide how to bring these functions. But the whole thing is things like NFV and SDN is making it easy to make this kind of changes, agility, and all those kind of changes to the system. So that's it. So that's what I try to demonstrate with Faucet. Of course, I think if you try it on your own, you'll appreciate it much better than just seeing what somebody else is doing. So I definitely encourage you to go through the Faucet link. We'll also put it in our meeting summary where I'm collating all the Q&As that have come. I'll put some reference links, and you'll get a copy of all that. That if you're continuing to explore 5G, so those would be the starting pointers that you can look at. Okay, so this is what I had for that. So before, I know we are almost top of the hour, like 4 o'clock. So I'll take a 5-minute break, and then we will do 2 exercises. One, I will just show you simulation of 5G using Python. So that is the last thing, and I'll share the code also, and then you can try it on your own. So okay, we'll just take a 5-minute break. But let me know anybody has any questions on I know we discussed a lot of things in the last hour, so just throw it at the last maybe half an hour, 45 minutes max of the session. So this is where we will focus on 2 tools that I have tried to make it work. So I'll show you how to do that, and that way you will be able to get some feel of it. So as I said, I think everything is not available in one place, so it's still evolving. I think it's up to us to develop some of those things and make it available as a community. So people who like coding, especially in Python, and then I think it will be very easy if you know Python, you can code up write a lot of code that will make these kind of functions that we create. So I think I just wanted to show maybe one last thing just to complete my answer to Nidhi, who asked about how do you bring all these technologies together. So Nidhi, I mean, as I said, like it's not just one prescription. It's not like one process or a 2-page or a 3-page document that somebody can give and say, hey, this is how we can do it. So it largely depends on first what is that you want to do in 5G. Let us say you are a 5G vendor, a 5G provider. So what is that you are going to provide? Are you provider for antenna? Are you only providing the RAN, which is the base BBU, or are you providing the so one as a see, because the answer will be different from different people. So if you talk to somebody like cloud company, right? Oracle. So you go to Oracle and say, how do I use all this to create my 5G world? They'll say, okay, use my SMF function. I can do very good session management. Use my EUSF function. We have very best authentication functions. So so that is one view. So where the vendors will tell that this is a way to do it. The other is the operators. So who are actually buying these things from the vendors. So they'll say, okay, yeah, I know you have the best one, but how do I manage it? How do I bring it down? How do I scale in? How do I scale out? So they'll say, okay, you want to scale out and scale in? So fine, let's use Kubernetes. We'll put a Kubernetes cluster on the NFV instance, so I'll be able to scale in, scale down, scale up. So all this. So it's not a straight answer that unfortunately I'm not able to put it in 2 or 3 sentences that you will that I can respond. But the point is, it is a mix of technologies. It's going to be a mix of technology that we know today, and there will be future technology that will be invented or maybe getting invented as we speak. So it could be multiple things that could be happening at the same time. So I would say it is. I think in the last 3-4 years, as a developer, as a operator, I think as a vendor, I think everybody have realized certain things, right? One, we cannot just give a product that will take, say, 5 days to update a software. So earlier in olden days, when somebody had to upgrade a router switch image, it used to take like, there was exclusive something called maintenance window, where you have to draw down the system, find a way to upgrade it, or put another system as secondary high, and then bring down one and upgrade. It used to take a lot of time. See, with the invention of mobile Android updates, today we don't even know when our softwares are getting updated. So that is the same experience what a 5G operator also will require. So if there is some new service I want, I should be able to replace my running infrastructure within a second or within a minute, so that without disrupting my entire data plane, forwarding, or whatever customer base I already have. So those are the things that will come. And then performance monitoring. So there are already tools like New Relic, App Dynamics, so which kind of help you understand what is the performance of these mobile applications for 5G. So there's a complete ecosystem that will be built. And how do they automate? Mostly through automation tools. So one is something like there is a company called Workato, which kind of automates a lot of IT infrastructure. There are tools like, for instance, I'll just share uh, quickly on what that I know. Uh, See, I will show you something called Salt Stack. Yeah, look at Salt Stack. Okay, not this, sorry. Salt Stack. So Salt Stack is again a completely automation. See, look at it, complete automation. So realize automation using Salt Stack. So this could be a way to integrate NFP with SDN controller, with the programmability, agility, scale in, scale out on top of a Kubernetes layer. So all that kind of fancy words you'll keep hearing. So you talk to any IT engineer, IT guy now, so they'll only tell you about like automation, then Kubernetes, Dockers, then full stack, and then something like DevOps, CI/CD pipeline. So these are the buzzwords. Everybody is mostly around talking about that. Then security, cyber security. So look at it. Like, I think, Nidhi, to answer your question. So look at this. See, they take care of under the hood. That means whether you have Juniper device or a Cisco device or a Cloudflare, Nutanix, any of them, they will abstract it so that you as a network operator will not even have to know that, okay, this is the device that is under the wire. So otherwise, what used to happen earlier is that uh, whenever a new product comes, right? So let's say you are a Cisco, you've been buying a lot of devices from Cisco. So you would be aware of Cisco CLI, Cisco configuration and all that. So suddenly, let's say you buy a Cloudflare device, I think the config changes. So all that is very painful for customers because they have to keep learning so many vendors, so many things, right? So that's why these kind of companies come and try uh, to abstract it so that under the covers we don't have to know what is running. So this is how integration will happen. These are the tools that will be developed more, that will provide you the automation and virtualization, all that abstraction as we talked. This is how it will come out. Okay, just thought I'll add that point. Okay, so folks, I think I just don't want to keep everyone waiting. So I'll just paste one link to the chat window. See if you can just pull it uh, to your device, to your GitHub. Okay, so I think, Nidhi, what is you're saying, data handling at the cloud service may be a bottleneck. Exactly, and it could be possible because of the speed at which some of these end users will be able to deliver it. It could be a bottleneck because the cloud providers also will have to exponentially scale their servers to be able to handle the load or the speed at which some of these things can be happening. That's a very good point. Yeah, really appreciate it for that view. Yeah. But I think cloud providers are smart enough. They already have figured out a lot of things that they will take care. So, because today the speed at which some of the AI ML processing is happening, right? It's a much faster than the speed of the network possibly. So there are already chips like AIML embedded chips. So they are all churning out data like anything, like terabytes of data are coming in. So I think the cloud infrastructure are capable. So if not very soon, they will be able to figure out. So my uh, opinion is that yes, they will be challenged, but I think they are already ready for that. So that's what I feel. Okay, so folks, can you take this link and see? Okay, so people, anybody have this JIT command, JIT in on your laptop or your thing? Can you check if you have a JIT? It should sound something like this. So you should see something like this. So anyone has JIT? Okay, Satish, yeah, that's good. So it seems to be updated. Very good. So you have a JIT. So just do a JIT clone. So anyway, I will leave it to you in how in the method that you like to pull it. But either you can do it by just downloading it as a zip file, or you can just take this and do something like JIT clone, and then paste it. It will pull it. So after that, you will have this code. So let me know if you are able to get. So what I want you to do is have this code called 5G, 5GPY. So there are some bunch of files here. Yesterday I have run this 5GPY. Very good. So you're able to get it running. So how did it end, Satish? Are you able to get it running? Yes. So what did you get out of it? So what is that one thing that you learned out of that 5G? Maybe one or two things that you can share, and what is that when you ran the 5GPY? So what is that you saw happening? So did you get to see the data plane? Did you get to see the which part of 5G did it help you? Some command line output I didn't get it. Okay, sure. We will explain. I'll tell you. So there's two changes I have done for that code. So whatever code I have got from them from the GitHub, I've added few lines. I'll give you that line also so that you can put it and get a little more meaning out of it. But otherwise, it's just a long listing of output that it's like just scrolling up and down and you'll not be able to get anything out of it. But we'll make it more readable as we would like to have. Okay, so anyone who are able to get it or who are not able to get it, or if you, I can wait maybe another 5 minutes if you want to try getting the code. Maybe anyone who is trying at least, can you let me know? Can I wait another 5 minutes, another 2-3 minutes? You want to try to get it, or should I just continue and I'll just show what I have? Okay, maybe I'll give another 2-3 minutes for people to download this. Just go here, download it. Okay, anyone trying to do a JIT clone to get it to your laptop, this 5GPY code? Okay, so maybe another 1 minute we'll wait, and after that we will get started. Meanwhile, let me prepare another whiteboard sheet. Okay, cool. Okay, so I think I'll anyway continue. So what I'm trying to show with this is that this is a simulation that was created from one of the universities as part of the research paper. So you can see the author name and everything here. So this is, at least it's easy to use. More than anything, I felt it is quite easy to use. Of course, their paper talks about pretty much in where they do the power computation and all that. So that's a lot of things are there in the paper, but I'm more interested was the simulation part. So I think they've done a good job to put their first building blocks for us to run something and get a feel of the 5G. So what they've tried to do is they've tried to do this. Exactly this is what they've tried to do. So they have tried to simulate a traffic generator, which is a host like a UE. You can call this as a UE, user equipment. And they have simulated a tower with this is of course the RAN part we can call, and let's call this as they have actually called it as RRH, this radio resource head. And then they have also simulated a BBU, the modem, the base band unit, right? The BBU that is there actually sitting on the top of the tower, or maybe it could be like running as a cloud RAN somewhere. Okay, so this is what they have done. So what they have done is they have tried to create something like this. So let me show you the let me show you first what is their file code so that you'll understand it better. The code is something like this. The very first thing you have to notice in this code is the configuration file, configuration.xml. So XML is of course one of the modeling language to represent a data type. I would have preferred to put it in JSON instead of XML, but anyway, since it is XML, that will take it. We'll take whatever is there. So these are the input parameters to the simulator. So this input parameters has something like a switch time, the response time of the switch, the transmission time the switch takes to send data. Then there is a latitude, longitude, base station, because this is the XY axis Cartesian plane they call, where they try to plot the base stations. And then they create four radio resource head, 0, 1, 2, 3, and they create four network nodes, 0, 1, 2, and they finally create some edges. Edges is, as you know, like it's a graph, right? It's a directed graph, and they call it as a directed graph. That means when I say source is 0 and switch is 0, that means the connection is from RRH 0 to switch 0. Okay, so this is the first thing that you have to understand in this code, that you have to understand the configuration files. It's very simple, nothing complicated. So all that they have done is created four radio resource head. So basically you can call them as antenna for now. And then there are four nodes, which is like the BBU. And then they have tried to connect the radio to the node and all that. So I'll just draw it here the way they have done it. So this is let me just remove this. Okay. I'll maybe use a blue color. Okay, so they have something like this. They have four RRH. Okay, it's become too big. This is one. Also tower. This is another tower. And this is the third tower. And the fourth tower. So each one is a tower. Let's put it like a tower. I'll call it as 0, 1, 2, and 3. So this is what you see here. So this is RRH. RRH. Yeah, I think somebody raised a hand. Yeah. Any question? Anyone? I think Bimal or someone. I missed the name. Okay. If you don't have a question, I'll continue. So this is RRH 0, 1, 2, 3 is what you will see it like this. 0, 1, 2, 3. This is the tower. Then node 0, 1, 2. So this node means it should be like a switch, some network device. Let's call this as, I'll take another color and then draw the network device. So this is like, there are only three of them. So it's something that means somebody is sharing the four towers, but three network devices. So that is probably being shared somewhere. And there's also something called a cloud, which is not there. They have not mentioned in the configuration, but they have, it's in the, yeah, there is a cloud. So here, there's a cloud, one more cloud, okay? So we will also draw the cloud. So this is the cloud. So this is the cloud. This is the internet, or you can, whatever you want to call, right? I'll say internet, I, big I. Okay, so now the next thing they have done is created edges, weighted edge. They call it, they're giving some weight. So obviously weight is possibly indicating the strength of the signal between the two links, the maybe the bandwidth of it or whatever. So they have like 5.5 for all radio to switch is 5.5, switch to another switch is 10, one switch to another switch is 3.4, so something like that. They've given different weightages to different switches. So we will do this. So the first is 0 is connected to switch 0. RRH1 is connected to switch 1. RRH2 is connected to switch. So first let's take this 0 is connected to switch 1. So I will draw a line which I will use the black line. So 0 is connected to 1. So let us call this a switch 1, S1, S2, S3. Okay, this is S1, S2, S3. So here RRH0 is connected to switch 0. Okay, RRH0 is connected to switch 0. So it's a directed graph, so I'll put an arrow. RRH1 is connected to switch 1. RRH1 is connected to switch 1. This is also connected to, okay, so not switch 1. Okay, I'm sorry. This switch 0, 1, 2. So let's call this as switch 0. And let's call it as switch 1. And this call it as switch 2. Okay, so hope this is okay. Okay, let's say this is S1. Oh, wow. This is S1, S2, I think. This is S1. This is S2. Let's call it as S2. Okay. So now we'll draw those edges. Use a different color. Okay, they look different now. Choose a color. Yeah, this is okay. So RRH 0 is connected to switch 0. So we have done that. RRH1 is connected to switch 1. So RRH1 is connected to switch 1 like this. Okay, sorry. RRH1 is connected to switch 1 like this. And then RRH2 is connected to switch 0. So this 2 is also connected to this same switch, this one. And then RRH3 is connected to switch 2. So this is a straight line here. And then switch 0 is connected to switch 1. Okay, there is interconnection of switches. Switch 0 is connected to switch 1. So this is the direction of that. Then switch 1 is connected to switch 2. Very good. Switch 1 is connected to switch 2. Nice. They have cascaded it. And then switch 2 is connected to switch 0. Okay, there's a reverse connection from switch 2 to switch 0. Okay, and then there is switch 0 is connected to the cloud. So what happened? I lost the browser. Okay. It should quickly come up. Oh, super. Okay, it's back. So switch 2 is connected to the cloud. So what it says is, okay, switch 2 is connected to cloud. Okay, here you can say that switch 2 is directly connected to the cloud. So in other words, this is the cloud, right? CLOUD cloud. So this is what is connecting. So that means if there are users sitting here connecting to this tower, and their data will actually come from one of the tower, go finally to S2, and then from S2 it will go to the cloud. So that means everybody has to come to S2. So if for tower 3, the people from tower 3 will directly go here. But on tower 1 and 2, they may come, they have to come to S2. That means what it basically means is that Also look at the weight of S2, right? If you notice S2, weight they're saying 3.4. I would expected that to be a little fat pipe because that has to take a lot more bandwidth from everything. But anyway, they're not looked at it that way. So this is what they're doing. So what they're doing now is they're simulating traffic coming from each of them of this radio into the radio of the antenna as our RAN, let's call it as RAN rather than antenna. And then the RAN sending data to the switch in turn they're sending data to the cloud. So this is the simulation. In a way, it's pretty good because you're getting the feel of the user equipment. That means the traffic generated from the user. You're getting the feel of the radio, so which is through the RAN, RRH. You also get a feel of the BBU, so which is the broad baseband unit. So and then the cloud. So you, of course, you don't have other functions like AMF, NS, all that 13 building blocks is not there in this, but that's okay. So you'll just get the starting point. Then you can keep adding it and use some kind of NFV integration to route everything from the each switch. You can route it to a firewall and come back like this. So that we can do later. So now let me when you have to run this, right? If you have to run this, this two changes I've done in the code. I will just show you what is the two changes. Okay, so one is I put my name so that we can easy to figure out. Okay, where is it? It's not there. It should be there. Okay. Oh yeah, I did it in that network. Right. Okay. So where is it? Okay, it's in simulation.py. Okay, thank you. Okay, so one thing I did is if you just run the simulation, so simulation, what it does is it will simulate. If you look at the code, maybe I'll open it here so that it looks big. Okay. vi simulation.py. Okay. So if you look at the code, it is very simple. So what it is doing is it is using a network utility. There's a lot of functions. There's also a network X, which basically used to create a network graph. So you can create a graph out of this network. And then, okay, so then the first thing is they read the initial parameters, all the switch time and all the performance metrics of the switches. Then they add the RRH, they add the node, they add the parameters, network edges, and then finally they do something, right? So what happened, they add the net edges and all that, and they start simulation. So there is something called run env until 600, right? So this is what the simulation timer is. So 360 minutes is something like how much? 360 by 36 by 60 is 60 minutes. It's going to run for 60 minutes. I think that's too long time. So I will just reduce it to 5 minutes. Okay. All that you have to do, maybe Satish, if you are watching this, you can just modify this line number, line number 108 here env to 5 so that it only runs for 5 minutes and nothing more than that. Okay. So what I've done is I've added another thing to this. Okay, PWD open here. Okay, where is it? It's in 5G PY. CD 5G. Okay. So yeah, here I've see one thing is I've imported another utility called matplotlib. So the good thing about matplotlib is that you can actually create a graph, something like this. This is a very simple graph visualization in Python. So this is an example. So I will show you. Okay, I'll just share this also if you want to copy and try it out. So here it is. So this is a very simple matplot plotting the graph. So what I've done is I've just added this code to their file so that we can show it as a graph also. I'll show you the graph. Another thing I did is 108 line, right? If you come to here, instead of earlier 3600 seconds, which is something like 60 minutes, so I just made it 5 minutes. So just quickly have. Then I also added another 2-3 lines to actually draw the graph and then save the whole chart in a picture. So let me run this, right? All that you have to do is Python 3 and then say simulator. So when you do this, it starts running. So this is, as you can see here, it is sending traffic from different cloud. So let me redirect it to some file and show you how the entire output looks. So whenever you have something like a, a file or output that is going away like this, so just redirect to a file to like this. It's very easy in Linux to do redirection. Just do a greater than X file name, and you will all the output will go into that, and then you can open it and look at it like this. See what they are trying to do is they have done this. They have added uh, the first radio at this location x 0, 0. X, I mean this is some. Let's forget this. This is some coordinates of the radios, and then so this is they started simulating. Each radio is trying to simulate, send it to UE, user equipment. So generating ECPRI, I think it is some, I don't know what ECPRI means. Just take a look and understand what ECPRI means. Enhanced ECPRI. Okay. So some broadband based uh, radio equipment. Okay, something around related to radio. Okay, cool. So they've done some all of this, and then they have started sending the data. So they've somehow figured out, okay, how each one is sending data. They're sending to the cloud and all this. So a lot of simulation is happening. So this is a basic simulator that you can think of for your if you are experimenting. So finally, what I have done is I have also added uh, a line to plot this. So the way it gets plotted is that it goes into a file. So if you look at the code, simulator code, so what I have done is if I look at this, right? So I have added this draw graph. It is drawing the graph and then it is writing the figure into that picture of the graph into a file name. So let me open that file name and then I'll show you how this works. So if you want to desktop, so 5G, okay. So this is the file name. So if you look at it, this is how it comes. It's not too, it's not labeled, so you are not able to figure out what is connected to what. So in other words, this is exactly what we wrote on the sketchpad, right? This is exactly what you're seeing. So this and this is similar. This is the same. So this is just one basic simulation that you have. There's another one that actually I also used, and I'll just show the demo of it. And we don't have time to. I mean, this is again a Rust R code. So this is R using R programming language. So I've just created one visualization. So what I've done is, and this is something that our students did it here in BMS. So I'll just show you this what we have done here. So we had a yeah, sure, Satish. I'll just share the lines. Yeah, I'll definitely put it out. Just let me finish this 2 minutes demo, and then I'll give you the lines of code. In fact, what I'll do is maybe I'll give the file itself to Shubha ma'am and she can post it to the WhatsApp or whatever. Okay, so this is one thing that there is another paper that came sometime back which kind of talked this very similar thing, cloud for computing, simulating a mech, which is basically a mobile edge core and all that controller. So what we did is we took something, where is it? Yeah. So this is something that is interesting. I recently understood. So today, if you want to plot an antenna, right? Let's say you are a designer of the antenna. You want to find out where all I should put my antennas. So that itself is a big challenge, right? It requires some science to understand where to place these antennas based on geography and based on the size of the geography, density of the people, connections, and all that. So they came up with there's something called GML. GML is like YML, AML, FML, and it's called GML. GML stands for Geo uh, Geography Metadata or something like that. So geography metadata. So this is where you can you can model all the cell tower and its location as a graph, as a directed graph, where you give the name of the cell, the land latitude, longitude. So this is actually the latitude, longitude of, I think, this maybe Spain or some city in Spain, okay, where they have all the latitude and longitudes. So they also had a simulation where they could see this all kind of traffic going back and forth. So what we did is basically took this AML and tried to put a visualization around it. I'll show you if that looks good. Yeah. So we try to put it slightly differently. So whatever visualization you saw here, this one, so we tried to put it in a slightly different way. We wanted to show that some are cars, uh, some are switches. So this is again a visualization. Of course, the data you can't see the data going from the user phone and all that. But what we did is we tried to put it out like this to show that the cells are connecting to that mobile phone is connected to the cell in turn is connected to a switch. This is access layer switch, the RAN switch, or the BBU, if you can call, and the two BBUs connect to a third BBU kind of thing, right? So this is what I think we did as part of another simulation. I think it went well. So this was done by students here in BMS. So this is yeah. I mean, as I said, a lot of so for to do this, what we did is again we use the same similar thing. So there's a lot of yeah. So we use matplotlib as the way to plot the graph, and then we created an image for everything, like one for phone. We just took copy pasted the image and then kind of sized it smaller so that we can put it in a graph. So there's a picture of phone, there's a picture of car, picture of tower, switches, and all that. And then whenever we create a node or an edge, so we put the corresponding image so that it shows what is coming out. And then that's it. So then we call the graph DB and show it off. That's it. Okay, so this is what I thought we could look at it, but I think this is promising. We definitely can okay. So Satish, what I'm doing is I'll just for your quick reference. So I will paste the lines in the chat. Yeah, so that you know where to add the code. So what you should do is look for this line called simulation started, search for that, and after you get that, right after that, add it. So Satish, if you notice, just look at my screen. So this is where the simulation starts. You have to add it right after that. If you this is a comment section, as you know, this is a Python comment. So if you add inside this, it will not work. You have to add outside before this comment section that starts. Okay. And then there's one more thing you have to add at the top. So just add this also to import matplotlib. Okay, so I've just pick it up. It will be quick. Okay, so what I'll do is for the other one, Satish, I will send the zip file itself, and then maybe Shubha ma'am can post it to you later. Okay, so because that requires complete the images and everything, right? So that's it. Okay, so it's you are able to get it running. Okay, cool. So just also Satish, one more thing, the simulation keeps going for a long time. So what you can also do is the ENV part, right? I think in 108 you can reduce the timer. Otherwise, it will run just insanely. It will keep running for an hour. Doesn't make any sense. So just make it 5 seconds. That's it. Okay. You have this also. This also you can. I think this is working. Okay, cool. So that's it. So this just some thoughts here and there. So okay, guys. I think I'm going to stop here. So hope you all had some good sessions today, especially trying to understand basic concepts of virtualization, Dockerization, and how to do NFV using Zeek and all that, and some Python here and there on the 5G front. Okay, so that's it for the day. Yeah.
Sandeep sir,
Sure.
on behalf of all the participants, one request, they need the materials, please upload, sir.
Yeah, sure. I will do it. See, I'm not, as I said, I don't have material where I can just post it. So usually, you know my style, I do use a whiteboard. So I'll give me another day. I'll post everything by tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Okay. And on behalf
everything.
of
Everything.
sir.
Yeah, Satish, the graph can change because it depends on the orientation of the graph library at that time. The initialization of the Cartesian coordinates could be different on your system compared to my system. So it can change. Okay, yeah, Shubha, go ahead.
Okay, sir, on behalf of participants, BMS College, Information Science, and from myself, very much thank you, sir. Whole day speaking is very difficult. I understand. Thank you very much for your valuable time.
Sure. Welcome. Yeah, we can speak.
It's so tiresome, sir. Take rest, sir.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys. So everyone have a good time, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Tomorrow again we have your session, sir.
What time is it? I don't have it in my
morning only.
Morning only? Okay. Okay, fine. We'll cover the rest of it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, participants. We'll meet you tomorrow again at 9:45 again with Sandeep sir sessions.
Sure. Okay, good. Okay. Bye everyone. Good evening. Goodbye.
Bye, sir.